Hi, this is Dana Gardner, Principal Analyst at Interarbor Solutions, and you're listening to Briefings Direct. Our next Briefings Direct Data Strategies Insights discussion explores the payoffs when enterprises overcome the hurdles of disjointed storage to attain global data access. By leveraging the latest in container and storage server technologies, the holy grail of inclusive, comprehensive, and actionable storage can be attained. And that cuts across all deployment models, from multi-cloud to SaaS to distributed data centers and edge. Stay with us now as we examine the role and impact that comprehensive data storage plays to deliver the rapid insights businesses need for their digital business transformations. To learn how, we're now joined again by Dennis Kennelly, General Manager, IBM Storage. Welcome back, Dennis.
Thank you, Dana.
Dennis, in our earlier discussions, we've learned about IBM's vision for global consistent data, the newest systems that are forming the foundation for these advances. But let's now explore the many value streams from attaining true global data access. We hear a lot about the rise of artificial intelligence adoption. So what roles do a modernized storage capability, particularly with a global access function and value, play in that growth? Why is this so foundational to the actual exploitation of artificial intelligence?
Well, first of all, Dana, I think if you start to think about the rate of data growth in the world, and as we grow and expand enterprises and become increasingly digitally transformed, the amount of data we are generating. I think IDC said there's something like 42 billion IoT devices out there by 2025, and each one of those are going to generate data. So the role of storage is not something that's centralized to the data center any longer. It needs to be distributed across this hybrid cloud environment. And then as you start to think about AI, you want to build models on all this data that's being generated across this environment. So being able to discover and understand that data is critical, which is a key part of our storage capability. But also being able to run on these environments, which are highly distributed in a seamless fashion. And you could be running anywhere, as I said, from the data center to a public cloud to an edge location. But you want to have the same software and capabilities in all these locations to allow that seamless access. And that's really critical to enabling this AI journey, because AI doesn't just operate on data just sitting on a public cloud or a data center. It operates on data because if you want to get those insights, you've got to get data from all these locations and bring it together in a seamless manner.
Yeah, it seems like, many organizations are intent on exploiting AI, but don't always know how to get there or to accelerate the adoption patterns. It is a very complex undertaking. When we're able to do more with global availability of data, particularly in a consistent context, how does that help prime the pump and accelerate the adoption? Are there particular use cases, maybe around collaboration, maybe around DevOps, maybe around extended enterprise activities in a global environment? How do we get people to sort of change their behavior when it comes to AI adoption, thanks to what the storage and data consistency can do for them?
First of all, I think, as I said earlier, it's about knowing where the data is and doing basic discovery and surveillance of that. And that's a non-trivial task in terms of doing that, which is kind of stepping stone one. And then I think, as you say, you talked about collaboration, because data is being generated right across the enterprise. And we're collaborating increasingly in this COVID world remotely and generating data as a result. So being able to share and get access to that data seamlessly across the environment is a critical requirement. And again, something that's really important to us. And then as you start to discover, share, etc., being able to bring that data together into AI models to actually to generate AI models in tiers of storage where you need to do that work and to do that analytics work. So you don't want to end up just, I discovered all the data, I'm going to move it to this location and I'm going to run my analytics on it. You want to be able to do that real time in a distributed fashion. And that's really what is critical, a key enabler for storage. So I think, but coming back to basics in terms of what is hindering AI approaches, number one, I think, is data discovery. We spend a huge amount of time just discovering the data. And then when we actually get access to that data, being able to seamlessly access it. And then, of course, as we do all that and build our AI models, how you actually infuse that into the applications and the capabilities that you're developing. And that leads on to your question around DevOps and tooling, to be able to integrate the process of generating and building AI models into the application development process so that we make sure the application developers can leverage that capability within the applications they're building.
For many organizations, moving to cloud and hybrid cloud has been about application portability. But when it comes to data mobility, which we can accomplish with these newer approaches to consistent global data access, there's also a greater value here. So is there a second shoe to fall, if you will, Dennis, when we can get to data mobility in a hybrid cloud environment?
Yeah, I think whether it is a second shoe or has the shoe fallen yet, I think no more so if you look back in history as cloud. I mean, if you think back, kind of our first cloud journey was all about moving to the public cloud and moving everything to public clouds and building applications, what we call cloud data. I think what we've discovered during that journey, life is not so simple, and we're really in a hybrid cloud world because for many reasons, compliance, etc., we need that hybrid cloud approach. That has then led us to technologies like containers and being able to get that portability across these environments from the data center to clouds, etc. As we roll containers and we move containers and these workloads into production, the whole data question is appearing because you can build an application, it runs in a certain environment or in a certain context, but as you move that application, which containers allow you to do very quickly, and if the data doesn't follow, or the data access, more importantly, doesn't follow that application seamlessly, then you run into some serious challenges and problems. And that is, I think, the next shoe to drop, and it's dropping right now, particularly as we roll a lot of these sophisticated applications into production and being able to either copy data or get access to data across this hybrid cloud environment. And that's the biggest challenge that the industry is being faced with right now.
Right. And when we try to envision data mobility, we're often thinking about location, but it also impacts the type of data, file, block, and object storage, for example. Why is what we're producing in the marketplace now able to not just deliver global access geographically, but comprehensively in terms of the type and also the underlying technology platform? Tell us a little bit why we're at a point where we can do global access of data and storage far greater than ever before.
I think you mentioned two parts of this, which is the data type, file, object, or block. So to the application developer, we really have to hide that layer of complexity from them. Because at the end of the day, the application developer is looking for a consistent API just to provide those data services. Whether it is a file, block, or object, it's just a type for them, and they shouldn't care about that detail. So first and foremost, it's really important, and that's one of the areas that we're focusing on, is having a consistent, what I would say, data access set of APIs to the developer. And then the storage subsystem has got to take care of that federated or global access of the data. And also, as we generate data, that the storage subsystem can scale horizontally. They are the design principles that we've built into our storage platform. That number one, that you get seamless access, consistent access, whether it is file, object, or block. But we can scale horizontally then as you generate data in that environment or environments, because it's been in the case of hybrid cloud.
The good news is that global access enablement and shared data can be done with greater ease. The bad news is the global access enablement can be done anywhere, anytime with ease. And so we have to worry about access, security, permissions, regulatory issues. How is it that you look to the ability to open the floodgates, in a sense, for common access to data, but at the same time put in the guardrails that allow for the management of that access in a responsible way?
Yeah, that's a great question, because as we introduce simplicity and ease of access, we open it up to everybody. And making sure, when I talk about those APIs, etc., that we have good authentication as core as part of the design, which is part of what we're doing, using things like second factor authentication, etc., on the data access APIs. But that's kind of half the problem. I think in the security world, unfortunately, there's an acceptance that you probably are going to get breached. But it's how you respond when that happens, breached, or you have an attack, etc. That's really what differentiates you, and how quickly you can get the business back on its feet when something happens. And that the storage subsystem, the storage world, has a critical role to play in that, because we see the data being written to persistent storage, which at the end of the day is what people are after. pretty much real time, every block, every byte of the day. And being able to understand what is typical behavior of those storage systems and how the data is actually being stored, etc., and being able to baseline that and understand when something out of the ordinary is happening. Clearly, if you're under a malware or crypto locker attack, you're going to see a very different I/O pattern than you would normally see if the normal application is running. And being able to detect that in real time, understand when it happened, and making sure that you have protected copies of data that you can quickly get back to the business so that they can get back online quickly. Why is all that important? Because, as I said, I think we live in a world where it's not a case of if it will happen, it's when it will happen, and how we respond is what's critical in terms of responding to security attacks.
Dennis, throughout our 3-part series, we've been discussing what we can do, but we haven't necessarily delved into specific use cases. And I know you can't always talk about named businesses and reference customers because this is being rolled out. And they're, of course, sensitive about their own internal systems. But how can we better understand the benefits of a global data access capability in the context of use cases in practice? When the rubber hits the road and these systems are in place, how is this really enabling business transformation? How is this supporting their business goals? And how do we measure the success? Is there a key metric for you when you look to how well your storage systems are supporting a business?
Yeah, I think in some of the key use cases, I think we're at a point right now, when you talk about the hybrid cloud journey in terms of where customers are looking to drive new business models and move much quicker in their environments. And there are other enabling technologies that are happening right now that's facilitating that. If you think about, there's a lot of talk right now about edge with the advent of 5G networks, etc., which enables a lot of this to happen. Because when you talk about seamless access and being able to distribute data across these environments, it's about, you need the underlying network infrastructure to make that happen. And as we do that, we're looking at a number of key business measures and metrics. We have done some independent surveys and analysis that now looking at the business value that we drive for our clients with a hybrid cloud platform, things like portability, agility, seamless data access, etc. And in terms of business value, and we have about 4 or 5 measures of this, we can drive roughly 2.5 times more business value for the client. Everything from top-line growth to operational savings. And that's something that we have tested with many clients independently and have real proof points of that happening. There are many examples, without getting into names, of where we have made that happen. And probably one that's very relevant in the world we live in today, where we have a cloud provider where they want to have more federated access to the data, but they also want to distribute that to edge nodes, and they're doing that in a consistent, seamless manner. And that's just an example of where this is happening in action, where traditionally they were doing all that centrally, and now it's out in edge locations.
Some of the major consumers of analytics in businesses these days are the data scientists. And they don't always want to know what's going on underneath the covers. But on the other hand, what goes on underneath the covers can really greatly impact how well they can do their jobs. For you to address a data scientist specifically about why this global access for data and storage modernization is so key, what would you tell them? How do you describe the value that you're providing to someone like a data scientist who plays such a key role in analytics and in business transformation?
Well, the world of data science or data scientists, they talk about data sets. And all this stuff I've talking about is kind of detailed to the data scientists, but what they want access to is data sets that they can test their hypotheses and their analytics on very, very quickly. And I think in a nutshell, what I would say is we surface data sets quicker and faster than anybody else at a price performance that leads the industry. And that's really what we do every day in terms of enabling the data scientists.
All right, Dennis, again, throughout our series of 3 discussions, we've talked about how we got here and what we're doing. But we haven't talked too much about what comes next. And it seems to me that these are enabling technologies that not only satisfy business imperatives and requirements now, but set up organizations to be even more impactful. And no one will argue with the fact that the more digital and more intelligent you are, the better you're going to be in the next 3 to 5 years. So let's look a little bit to the future. What do you get as sort of ancillary or expanding values when you do data access globally and across hybrid clouds well?
So what you get, I think, is you get to look at business models and new business models across these environments. Because at the end of the day, this is about driving business growth. So as you start to look at these environments, and we've talked a lot about analytics and we've talked a lot about data, etc. But really it's about, to get a competitive advantage, is having that real-time insights on what's going on in your environment. Being able to understand, if you're in a supply chain business, what's happening in certain products, etc., or certain manufacturing lines, and being able to respond accordingly, or what's not happening, as the case may be. I mean, so there's a big operational benefit to that in terms of savings, and that you don't have excess capacity in your environment. Also, I think in terms of new business opportunities, being able to detect patterns that you hadn't, and insights they hadn't seen before. And doing that with analytics and machine learning is what's critical in these environments. At the core of that, if you have to move your environment and centralize everything, then that really hinders that progress. But being able to do that, with the data as it is and as it's being generated in real time, gives you very unique insights to provide competitive advantage.
Lastly, why IBM? What sets you apart from the competition in the storage marketplace when it comes to attaining these larger goals of analytics, intelligence, and competitiveness? Why IBM?
I think we have shown over the years in terms of, if you go back into the IBM, that we have been at the forefront of many transformations of business in the industry. Go back to the electronic typewriter, if we want to go back far enough, to our B2B, our E2E model, and now in the hybrid cloud model. IBM has helped businesses transform and make those steps through many of these transformations. Everything from, in what I'm talking about, storage, through to data and AI, through to hybrid cloud platform with Red Hat and Enterprise Linux, and also then right out to our business service consulting. IBM has the end-to-end capabilities to make that happen and positions us as an ideal partner to do that. Because as much as I love to talk about storage and the value of storage, I spend a lot of time talking with people in our business consulting group to understand those business transformations that clients are trying to drive and the role that storage has that. Likewise with our data science and data analytics teams, that we are enabling those technologies. So the combination of those capabilities as one IBM is a unique differentiator for us in the industry, and why we are developing what I think are leading edge capabilities, products, and technology to enable that digital transformation.
Well, very good. I'm afraid we'll have to leave it there. You've been listening to a sponsored BriefingsDirect discussion on the major payoffs when enterprises overcome the hurdles of disjointed storage in order to attain global data access. And we've learned about the role and impact of a comprehensive data storage model when delivering rapid insights, as well as the need for accomplishing digital business transformations. So please join me in thanking our guest. We've been here with Dennis Kennelly, General Manager of IBM Storage. Thank you so much, Dennis.
Thank you, Dana.
And thanks as well to our audience for joining this BriefingsDirect Data Strategies Insights discussion. Please look as well for the other 2 discussions in this series on IBM Storage Vision and the newest systems that form the foundation for these advances. I'm Dana Gardner, Principal Analyst at Inter Arbor Solutions, your host throughout this series of IBM Storage-sponsored BriefingsDirect discussions. Thanks again for listening. Please pass this along to your IT community and do come back next time.